Hello, Christine.
Hello, Sonia.
Thank you for accepting my invitation.
You're welcome.
I'm really happy to have you here in this space and to be able to talk to you about this subject, the energetic body, that interests me a lot in this moment, and it's a big part of my research. And is there something that you want to bring before I start making questions?
No, I'm curious. I'm really curious for your questions as a necessity, as a driver. Yeah.
Okay, so I am really intrigued by the way women relate to their energetic body. And what I want to know is, how has this relationship been for you in, like, overall, since you can remember? How did you relate to your energetic body?
Actually, I had not such a defined and intense experience with my energetic body, because what I found out in a process, I think it was 3 years ago, was that my energetic body was scattered, or like one of my energetic body. I think that there are layers in the energetics, and one of my energetic body was in a situation when it was a baby. There was so much noise that it was scattered, so in millions of pieces. And what I did to survive, kind of, I sucked it in behind my solar plexus. And this is where I had my reference point of my energetics. So my energetic body was not in place, but somehow still I had a reference in my solar plexus, because kind of the synapses, like the synapses of how can I explain this, of getting and receiving the information from the outside, was still activated, but not at the right place. So that had the effect that people were coming much more towards me than I wanted, because my reference point was within me than outside of my physical body. So it took me, many years of discovery that I came to that point where I could do this process of understanding that it was so painful that it shattered. And so, since then I started my journey of really getting a different sense of my energetic body. And since then also, what I experienced very often related to my kind of missing in the right place energetic body was that I was freezing a lot. On a physical level, I was this frozen butt, like always freezing. And after that process, I started to have warmer feet, warmer hands. So it really had an impact on my physical body. And that was, that I felt glad about that, because I was always freezing. Like, what can I do? Why I'm always freezing? And I knew there must have been a reason. And a reason, not in a mental way, but a cause. And I was glad that I could establish my energetic body again in this process around me, where it belongs. So since then, I'm researching more related to how does fear relates with my energetic body, and how is how is the energetic body related to my ability to use conscious fear and connect into the wider field. So to receive informations which are indeed invisible, and still they are there. So yeah, this is what comes for now.
And before we move into the fear, into the fear field. So you had this reference point of your energetic body being behind your solar plexus, and then you during that process you put your energetic body into its place outside your physical body. Yes. And so physically you notice a difference, the cold and the warmth. And was there something else, like energetically speaking, did you notice something shifting?
Yes, what I noticed was that I could set clearly more boundary. Like a boundary was, when I set a boundary energetically, it was really happening. So there was, because first when I set a boundary, it was related to the place within me. So there was, the boundary was there, but somehow not at the place where I wanted it to be, on the periphery, with my energetic body. So after it was back in place, boundaries were of people. I shifted from pushing people away to really become a boundary and hold my boundary in a natural way.
Can you say more about that? Because you said I started placing boundaries energetically, and then you mentioned I became the boundary. Mm-hmm. Can you paint a picture of how that goes?
Yeah, like in general, setting a boundary and becoming a boundary?
Yes, mm-hmm. Yes, and how do you perceive it?
Like, yeah. So what I noticed is that everybody has its center. Also, the energetic body has a center, an energetic center, which is flexible and also dividable. Mm. So parts of our energetic center we are giving to in situations which we think we have no power, or it might be that we get punished. We are giving our center, so to speak, to the person, to the authority figure, which means like we are giving our center away and also our power away when we are doing this. So when you set a boundary, people need to realize that they have, when they are not, or they, when, let's start over. When they have problems to set a boundary, chances are high that their energetic center is somewhere outside. Mm. And what they are actually are doing is that the center is outside, and when they set a boundary, they make like this: stay outside, this is my place. But actually they are only holding people in distance. They are not setting a boundary. This is mainly the starting point where people are. The energetic center, which is their power place, or like the energetic center, when you put your energetic center on your physical center, which is in the balance point in your under the navel towards the spine, there is the balance point in the physical body, and there is the physical center of our physical body. And when the energetic center lies on the physical center, then a person is centered, which means you have this is where you have power, when this is a match. But as I told you, that people are throwing their authority, their energetic center, their own authority towards other authority figures, they don't have their center, which means they don't have their power. So when the power is still out there, they start to make boundaries like this, and then the next step is to realize that they are pushing actually people away or hold them in distance. That's the first step of understanding or like realizing what they are doing. And then it is necessary to pull back your energetic center, which you can very often as a coach, you see it when you can translate it when people are talking about how they are speaking and how they are setting boundaries. It's like one boundary might be, I don't want you to be in my space. So this is a wish what people are placing. That's not a boundary. They are giving still their center to the other person. They are telling them the wish and like, I don't want you there, but there is no power in this conversation, right? Because the other person can say, I don't care, I will come anyway, right? and then the next thing is like, I don't want that you come into my room. And I'm like, okay, super, I hear you. Still, the center is out there. So it's about shifting the purpose from holding a person in distance, then, okay, I don't want that you come into my space, and I will make it happen that if you would come closer, I don't allow it. And then this would be the next sentence, right? When a person would say, I don't allow that you come into my room, that's the first step into getting your center back. And at the end of the day, you would say, this is my room, stay out. And you stay out because I will make it happen that you stay out. And there's no argument about that anymore. When you're so clear, then people are actually, they would not even knock anymore on your door. And this is exactly what happens when you have your energetic center out there and you slowly bring it back into your center, into your own center, and keep it there. Because it's very fast, you throw your energetic center back to the authority figure. Yeah. And then when you have your center and you're clear and like, this is my space, I'm my own authority, this is where you become your boundary. There is no argument. No one can take your decision of like, I'm this space and I'm holding this space. No one can argue with this. Right? There is no one else involved besides yourself. And this is where the power is, that you are your boundary.
I can see as you were speaking, I could sense in myself the difference between saying the 3 different sentences that you said while landing the distinction. And as you were moving in the distinctions, I was there was something happening that was, wow. When you go from the first sentence of, I don't want you to come into my space, and then I will make that you don't come into my space, and then this is my space. It's what I perceived was that the last one is someone that is ready to face the consequences of setting the boundary, of being the boundary. And I felt my fear rising, and also because of the consequences, and also the power in the sentence of, this is my space.
Yeah. That's why we start in possibility management to that people get their authority back. And one tool for that, one major tool is to have their anger back. because then they can take care of themselves, have their sword on the throat of the person they are talking to, and also on their own throat, to keep their own integrity. Because it's so much about your own integrity when you're setting a boundary and you're becoming a boundary. This is pure integrity. Like no one can do it for you, but the only person who can do it is yourself. And what an amazing thing. That's pure creation. That's pure lifeness. That's authority. That's like integrity and clarity and creation power in action.
Thank you. And how I'm really into the integrity exploration also, and how you get like messages through your energetic body, those synapses you were talking about. And how was it, or how is it for you to keep in integrity with what you receive from your energetic body, the information that you receive from your energetical body?
Can you say more?
Yes, it is. As the more I explore the information that I receive from my energetical body, as it is so subtle and it's so rich, and there is I see that there's not something concrete to base this information in. And so for me, it's really difficult to be in my own authority and just radically relying on the information that comes from my energetic body. And so my question is, did you go through this, or was this a question to you to radically rely and do this path of radically relying in the information that you get? Is it clear now?
Yeah. And I think it's a path, especially when the way of patriarchy means also a way out of a construct, out of linearity and a rigid, controlled way of doing things in different life territories, which means that the linearity of this is what I'm doing now. I'm standing up and I'm doing my breakfast. I make myself ready. Then I go to work. At 10:30, I have a break, and then I go talk to the colleagues. And then at 12:30, there's lunch break. And so it's already very much planned during the day for a lot of people on this planet. And what I realized and what I noticed, for a long time, I was also in such a structure. And step by step, I was weakening these structures because I shifted into part-time job, which gave me half of the time more flexibility to even realize that there were impulses, because I was so occupied with keeping on track of how it's supposed to be, like how the given structure I was opting into was working. So I was more adapting in compared to having a free flow. And first I had a 100% job. So mainly I was driven by a construct. But listening to the energetics is, you need to have space in yourself. So, and also, yes, space and silence. I would say silence, not too much noise around you. And it's not about really like, okay, noise in the outside, and there's some, not the the birds which are singing, but the constructions and the cars and everything what is in mainly also in cities, and chattering is, and phone ringings in offices, and all these noises are holding us back from really listening to the inner voices, which is our intuition, which is connected to the energetics. Right? Like the intuition is informed by the energetic body, and then it's this inner voice which gives us the information, but it's not loud, and therefore you need to have an inner silent space so that you even be able to listen. So when I had this 100% job, I could not listen, but slowly I shifted into a part-time job, and then I had these so-called empty spaces. I made space so that I practiced to be in the flow. This is how I called it, like being in the flow and listening to the signs. What is the next step? And these experiments were so necessary for me to even be able to listen to the next impulse, and to see the synchronicities which are happening when because I would say they're very often happening, but people are not realizing that that synchronicities are happening in their life, that they want something, and then people were like ECHO, we call it the Earth Coincidence Controls Office, that something is moving people together. If you have an intention and say, this is what I want, you have made a decision, the echo is moving people into your field. Mainly people are so occupied with other noises that they are not even realizing when the right person for their next step is in front of their head. So I made the space that I could see people coming into my field and realizing, wow, again, I met this person, and that's really I needed to talk to this person. I was surprised how it works. So afterwards, I was reflecting back and turning around and like, oh, wow, this is what happens. I called it, and this was the answer. So it needs this observation time that that you realize what was happening, because in the moment, often I was not used to see the synchronicities. So very often at the beginning of this transition time, in me noticing the energetics and the process flow of my life, was that I turned around, and in hindsight I was seeing what was happening. I was observing kind of the timeline of my day, and I was like, this is when it happens. And slowly I could move into the awareness that I see it when it's happening in the moment. Like wanting to meet someone here, for example, at home in the community, and it's like, I need to talk to this person. And then I get the impulse to go out of the house, and then I do this, and then the person is there. It's like, okay, thank you, Echo. I did not need to call the person. Okay, I can have a invitation per mail or a telegram or whatever, but Echo is also moving me, so I can also listen to these impulses. And this is so related to the energetics. When you have your fear, your conscious fear activated, then it's like these synapses, they are tapping into the energetic field around the big, huge universe field, the morphogenetic field. And then people are lining around you, or even calling from very far. They call you because the field was informing them that you wanted to call them.
I heard you say that you started creating space. Can you share like a clear experiment if people that are watching this interview would want to do the experiment of creating space to start listening to the flow, as you said?
Yeah. So it would be great to start with time in your day where you have no task. Like take your 1 hour where you put in your calendar even like this is the flow experiment. And you lay on the ground or you sit on the chair and you wait for the impulse. And you only move yourself from the chair when you get the impulse. And then you do it, and then you go back to the chair. And then you do the next thing when the next impulse comes. And you do this for an hour, for a whole week, for 7 days. And then see what emerges. And the ongoing experiment could be to make even more space a day. Or, like I said, I shifted from 100% to a part-time job, so I had kind of 50% more space to where nothing was planned in my calendar. But I let it emerge. And there was no one telling me what is the next step. So this could be an ongoing expansion of the process. And another experiment is really to turn the camera around into the past every evening, to see what was your intention in the morning, or like set your intention in the morning. Like, are there people you want to talk to? Is there something you want to see? Is there something you want to learn? Like these three focus: talk to, learn, and see, right? And then see if it's happening. Like in the evening, you turn around and check what people did you meet? Were they the people you wanted to meet without you reaching out? Were there maybe magazines or like newsletters popping up with a specific topic you wanted to learn about? So be really precise in observation, because this is the first main step of noticing, observing and noticing what is happening. Because to untrain and unlearn the busyness, that's the muscle actually, what you like to untrain this. Oh, there's so much noise, but to listen to the inner voice.
I'm already having ideas. And can you fear is something really, fear is a feeling that people are really afraid of.
Yeah.
And I am getting more and more in contact with my feelings, and one of them is fear. And it has been this amazing journey, and I see how my fear is connected to the energetic body and this field, this big field, this big invisible field. Can you share a little about how was stepping into conscious fear, and where are you at now in your exploration with your energetic body and fear?
Like, actually, how I started with fear was that I had, or what I noticed when I was 35, I had a huge process, and that was the beginning when I started my journey with possibility management. One of the first processes, actually, I learned that I had a construct about fear in myself, like a mind construct, how fear should be, like really a mind construct, but my fear was blocked completely. Because in this process, I figured out that I blocked my my fear to 100% when I was in the incubator. So I reactivated my fear when I was 35. Before I had only an understanding of fear, and that's also so interesting to turn because I could only understand and see the bigger picture when I turned the camera around into the past. And I was like, oh wow, this is what I did. So what I did, because I had no reference point in myself about fear, I lined up with a very good friend, my best friend in school, and she was this super afraid person. She was she was scared about everything, right? Like she heard a noise and at a construction site, something was falling. And for me, it was like, oh yeah, something fell. She was like, what is this? And she had fear about cancer and all the illnesses and whatever. She was this scary woman. And I learned from her how to behave when you're afraid.
Oh, wow.
So I had this, okay, you're afraid when you're going through the forest. And of course I was turning around when I'm going to the forest, but somehow I was like, I was not getting hot, or what I'm doing now, or I was not this, it was not an inner information. It was literally a mind construct. So I got my fear back when I was 34 or 5. And then I started to investigate what is it, and I noticed that since then my sensitivity of the right timing, looking out of the window and see, like I have a knack of seeing a lot of things, which people maybe they want to even hide it, or like new couples appearing and they want to sneak into for a walk into the forest, and that I see them because exactly at that moment I look out of the window. And it's like, okay, I don't know why
And
this
this is your fear informing you.
yeah, my fear is telling me to look at that time out of the window. Like my fear gives me the information, and before I did not know that, and I was very off track. I had to my inner timing was very much related to my a plan I made. Like it was more time related on the clock than on my inner time, on my inner navigation system, which is the fear. And there's a right timing, but not a time itself. It's not a time, it's at 5 p.m. or what. And so the fear tells me when to do things, when to stand up, when to move, when to call a person. Of course, I still have a schedule, and there are these, especially when it's about creation. I'm waiting for my inner impulse, and this I see that I'm related to the field, and when is the right impulse to do something, and then I'm moving. I'm not moving anymore because I put it in my calendar and then I will do it, especially when it's about creation and writing. I'm only doing it when my fear tells me, yes, go ahead. Now it's the time. And I'm asking my fear, what do you have for me? And my fear, and you can also call it the intuition. Even it's not the same, of course, but intuition is fueled by the fear field, by fear. This is how I see it. And to ask yourself, fear, what do you have for me? And then listen and then move. It's also, and there also the integrity comes along, right? It's about when you are not listening to your inner impulses, they will become weaker, because like this force will say, okay, if I'm not used for what I'm here, like it still stays here, of course, but it's almost that if you pull it more out because you use it, it gets activated and it is growing, and the information gets more and more and clearer. So it has this expansion effect if you use your intention intuition and your fear information.
It's like a muscle.
Yes.
That you work out. And while you were sharing, there's this image that comes, like there are so many rules of we have to eat at a certain time, and we have to eat 3 times a day, or other rules that it's like they create these blocks that constrains the flow and that muscle you are talking about. Now, I've been experimenting with that, with not having a time to do things related to the clock, but looking inward and seeing what is my time. And there's a sense of flowing into the space, of occupying the space that is not that present when I'm moving accordingly to the rules of the clock, for example. And I heard you say that fear and intuition are not the same. And can you share a distinction on that? How is that for you? How do you differentiate fear from intuition?
Mm-hmm. Like the intuition is the translation of the information which fear brings towards you. So fear is the transmitter of information. It's almost that the landing, the information is the plane, and then the highway is the fear, and it comes towards you, and then your inner system is translating it into a voice, an inner voice, and that's the intuition coming up as an impulse, as a voice. Or some have impulses, some have pictures, and then it's the translation, and they are collaborating together. It's like without the fear, you don't get the information, and without the information, you would not get the impulse, because then the collaboration with the wider field is not possible.
I'm so happy with this conversation because in my research as with fear, I started realizing that what was informing me, what I thought was my intuition, was actually my fear. And now with what you said, okay, it lands in me. There's another layer to it. And yes, what I'm discovering is that it is the fear that brings me the information. And I had this thing that was the intuition that brought me the information. But it's not that. It's actually the fear that it's like all the time gathering pieces. And then there's this translation with the intuition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like it's the same thing with anger. Anger brings also an information, but a different kind of information. And the sadness is also giving you information, but another kind of information. So it's how I see it also translated into to the emotional body is that the informations are stored in the physical body, and I see that emotions or the feelings are always the transmitter, like the carrying substance of information. And in an emotion, it works like this because the information is stored in the cells of the physical body. So it needs this liquid emotional state so that the information can be extracted. And then it goes, of course, through the mind, also through the mental body, into the awareness of the person. But it's this, the emotion is the information carrier, and at the same time, like this is what happens with emotions. But in handling life, not related to an emotion, but really in the present moment, in the now, feelings are doing the same job, but not constrained into a physical place, but it's fluid, it's alive, it's in the moment, it's in the now. The information comes. It's not a static thing. In the emotion, it's a trapped, static information which we are extracting. And in the here and now, the feelings are bringing us moving energy, moving information, which are related to the here and now. What we can use to make the next step, the next decision, the next move in our life.
I'm feeling really sad. I have a lot of questions and there's no time to do them all. And I have one last question or a request. That is, a lot of people that may be listening to this have this fear of fear. And do you have something that they could try to start discovering the power of the fear?
Yes, like a very simple experiment is to sort out and have a conversation, or like have an experiment with another person. Because what I noticed is sharing fear is so essential and people are not doing it. Right? It's like fear is, you keep your fears in the back. You're hiding your fears. This is how society is treating fears. It's like fear, better you get rid of. So to have the experiment with another person, and you set the alarm for 10 minutes, and one person is listening as a Buddha. Right? You're centered and have your physical, like energetic center on your physical center. You have your space, your bubble of space, your grounding cord. And if you don't know these tools, like listen like the Buddha would do. And it's not about asking questions, it's really listening with all your bodies. Open yourself and you're in service for the other person. And the other person is sharing fears. And again, you would start the sentence, I feel fear because. And then you finish the sentence. And then this is kind of done. And then the next layer comes up. And maybe you have fear because the person is sitting too close in front of you. Then you would say, I feel fear because you're sitting too close to me. Whatever comes as a next information, even it's from the past or from the now, you share it 10 minutes. And again, I feel fear because. And then you're switching roles for another 10 minutes. And afterwards, you will have a check-in. How is it? How was it as a listener? And how was it to share? And yeah, you will see. It's magic might happen, because it's really, what I heard from many people is like, wow, finally someone is listening to my fears, because this is not what we are doing. And that opens a space in us to say yes to fear, and then to start the journey. It's a journey to discover your own fear emotionally, but also the feeling of fear. Like both territories are treasures to explore.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine.
You're welcome, Sonia.